The bridge of the starship Aurora's Dream hummed with quiet efficiency as Captain Vera Sterling gazed out at the swirling nebula before them. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes held the steady confidence that had earned her command of humanity's most advanced exploration vessel at just 32 years old. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering, sleek and powerful, with curves that spoke of both beauty and deadly capability. "Captain, we're detecting something unusual," Lieutenant Jackson Reed called from his navigation station. Vera felt that familiar flutter in her chest whenever she heard his voice. Tall, with sandy brown hair and intelligent brown eyes, Jackson had been her closest friend and secret romantic interest for the past 2 years. The regulations about fraternization made their situation complicated, but the tension between them was undeniable. "Define unusual, Lieutenant," Vera replied, moving to stand behind his chair. She caught a hint of his cologne and felt her pulse quicken, multiple energy signatures emerging from the nebula. "They're massive, Captain. Much larger than anything in our databases." Jackson's fingers danced across his controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm reading at least 12 vessels, each one the size of a small city." The main view screen shimmered and displayed the emerging fleet. Vera's breath caught in her throat. The ships were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. They seemed to be grown rather than built, with organic curves and bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like heartbeats. The largest vessel resembled a massive sea creature with flowing tentacle-like appendages that sparkled with inner light. "First contact. Protocol," Vera announced, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "All departments report readiness status." The responses came quickly from around the bridge. Vera moved to her command chair, acutely aware of Jackson's eyes following her movement. She activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is Captain Sterling to all crew. We are potentially witnessing humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. Remain calm, follow protocols, and remember that we represent not just ourselves but all of Earth. We will make history together." The largest alien vessel moved forward with fluid grace, its bioluminescent patterns shifting to what seemed like a communication attempt. Vera nodded to her communications officer. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's complex. The computer is trying to establish translation protocols." Minutes stretched like hours as the two fleets faced each other across the void. Finally, the view screen flickered and displayed the image of the most beautiful being Vera had ever seen. The alien was clearly female, with iridescent blue-silver skin that seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight. Her features were elegantly angular, with large, luminous eyes that held ancient wisdom. She wore what appeared to be living armor that moved and breathed with her body. "I am Ambassador Xylia Nethys of the Zilithian Empire," the being spoke, her voice like musical crystal. "We greet the small ones who dare to venture into our domain." Vera stood, smoothing her uniform. She was aware that every word she spoke now would be recorded in history books. "I am Captain Vera Sterling of the United Earth Federation. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars." Celia's expression was unreadable. Peace, an interesting concept from a species that wars constantly among itself. She paused, her luminous eyes studying Vera intently. "You are younger than expected for one who commands. Your species must have great faith in untested youth." Before Vera could respond, another figure appeared beside Xylia. This one was clearly male and radiated aggression like heat from a forge. His skin was darker than Xylia's, with armor that seemed more technological than biological. Red markings crawled across his face like living tattoos. "General Corvin Thross," he introduced himself without pleasantries. "Military commander of the 3rd Zilithian Exploration Fleet." His eyes locked onto Vera's with predatory intensity. "Captain Sterling, your species has been observed. We know of your wars, your violence, your consumption of resources. What assurance do we have that you are not simply another plague spreading across the galaxy?" Vera felt Jackson tense at his station behind her. She raised her hand slightly, a gesture he would recognize as a signal to stay calm. "General Thross, humanity has indeed struggled with conflict throughout our history, but we have also shown the capacity for growth, for peace, and for cooperation. Our journey to the stars represents our hope to transcend our limitations and join a larger galactic community. Celia stepped forward, and Vera noticed how the general deferred to her despite his obvious military rank. The power dynamics of their species were clearly more complex than they appeared. Your words carry conviction, Captain Sterling. Perhaps a closer examination is warranted. Celia's form shimmered, and suddenly she was standing on the bridge of Aurora's dream, having somehow transported herself across the void. The bridge crew reacted with shock, hands moving toward weapons, but Vera raised both hands. "Stand down, Ambassador Zelia, that was unexpected. Your species thinks in terms of barriers and boundaries," Zelia said, moving with fluid grace toward Vera. She was taller than expected, nearly 6.5 feet, and her presence filled the space around her with an almost intoxicating energy. "We have evolved beyond such limitations." Jackson stepped forward, his protective instincts overriding protocol. "Captain, we don't know their intentions." Zelia turned her luminous gaze to him, and Vera saw her expression soften with what might have been amusement. "Your concern for your captain is touching. Such emotional bonds between crew members are considered weaknesses in most galactic civilizations. Yet I sense great strength in your connection." Vera felt heat rise in her cheeks. Could this alien somehow sense the romantic tension between them? "Our relationships are based on trust and mutual respect," Vera said carefully. "They make us stronger, not weaker." "Fascinating," Zelia murmured, circling the bridge like a predatory cat studying her prey. But there was no malice in her movement, only intense curiosity. "General Thross believes your species should be quarantined or eliminated. He sees only the violence in your nature." "And what do you see?" Vera asked, meeting the alien's gaze directly. Zelia stopped in front of her, close enough that Vera could smell something like ozone and exotic flowers. "I see potential. Dangerous potential. Your species burns bright, Captain Sterling. Like young stars, you could either sustain life across the galaxy or consume everything in your path." The viewscreen crackled, and General Thross's image appeared larger than before. "Ambassador, this close contact violates security protocols. These humans could be carrying biological weapons, or their primitive thoughts could contaminate our neural networks." "Contaminate?" Vera asked, confused. "Zilithians share a form of collective consciousness," Zelia explained. "Strong emotions, particularly intimate ones, can affect our entire species if left unchecked. Your human capacity for intense individual bonding is both fascinating and potentially destabilizing to our social order." Vera glanced at Jackson, seeing her own concern reflected in his eyes. They had stumbled into a first contact scenario far more complex than any simulation. "We have no desire to harm your people," Vera said. "But we also cannot change what we are." Zelia smiled then, the first truly warm expression Vera had seen from her. "Nor should you. Evolution requires change, and change requires risk." She looked between Vera and Jackson, and her smile became knowing. "Your species' capacity for love may be exactly what the galaxy needs." General Thross's image flickered with what appeared to be anger. "Ambassador, I must protest this continued exposure. Order the human vessel to withdraw immediately, or I will consider them a hostile force." "You will do no such thing," Zelia replied, her voice carrying absolute authority. "I am invoking diplomatic immunity under the ancient protocols. Captain Sterling, would you be willing to accept a cultural exchange? Your crew and mine could learn much from each other." Vera looked around her bridge, seeing the mixture of excitement and apprehension on her crew's faces. This was why they had come to the stars, but the risks were enormous. "What kind of exchange?" Vera asked. "Send some of your people to our ship. We will send some of ours to yours. A mutual sharing of knowledge, culture, and—" Zelia's eyes sparkled with mischief, emotional understanding. Jackson stepped closer to Vera, his voice low. "Captain, this could be incredibly dangerous. We don't know anything about their technology, their biology, their true intentions." Vera nodded, but her explorer's heart was already decided. "It could also be the greatest opportunity in human history. She turned to Xylia. Ambassador, I accept your proposal with the understanding that either party can withdraw if the exchange becomes harmful. Agreed, Xylia said, extending her hand in what appeared to be a universal gesture. When Vera took it, she felt a shock of energy pass between them, and for just a moment she sensed something vast and ancient and infinitely complex touching the edge of her consciousness. The exchange begins now, Xylia announced. I look forward to learning about human love, Captain Sterling, and perhaps teaching you about ours. As the ambassador shimmered and disappeared, returning to her own ship, Vera realized that their peaceful exploration mission had just become something far more complicated and dangerous than anyone could have predicted. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of, and humanity was about to discover that love might be the most powerful force in the universe. Jackson, she said quietly, not looking at him directly, prepare an away team, and make sure you're on it. Yes, Captain, he replied, and she could hear the mixture of excitement and apprehension in his voice that matched her own feelings exactly. The real adventure was just beginning. The cultural exchange had been underway for 3 days, and Dr. Nix Castellanos could barely contain her excitement as she studied the Zilithian biological samples in the joint laboratory aboard Aurora's Dream. At 29, she was humanity's leading xenobiologist, with dark curly hair that seemed to have a mind of its own, and bright amber eyes that sparkled with curiosity about everything alien. Fascinating, she murmured, adjusting her microscope. Their cellular structure is unlike anything we've theorized. It's as if each cell contains its own quantum processing unit. Your enthusiasm is infectious, came a deep, melodious voice. Behind her, Nick spun around to find Prince Zephyr Alteris leaning against the laboratory doorframe. The Zilithian royal was breathtakingly handsome, with silver-blue skin that seemed to glow from within and hair that moved like liquid starlight. Unlike the formal armor worn by other Zilithians, he dressed in simple, elegant robes that accentuated his tall, lean frame. Prince Zephyr, Nick said, feeling her cheeks warm. I didn't hear you come in. I wanted to observe you in your natural habitat, he said with a smile that made her heart skip. Ambassador Xylia speaks highly of human curiosity, but seeing it firsthand is remarkable. Nix tried to focus on her work, but his presence seemed to fill the room with an intoxicating energy. Your people's biology is incredible. The way your cells communicate with each other is almost like they're having conversations. Zephyr moved closer, his eyes studying her with the same intensity she had been applying to her samples. May I show you something? Without waiting for an answer, he placed his hand over hers. Immediately, Nix felt a warm, tingling sensation spread up her arm, and suddenly she could sense something extraordinary. It was as if she could feel the life force flowing through both of them, connecting them in ways she had never imagined possible. This is how we truly communicate, Zephyr said, softly, through direct neural connection. Your species calls it telepathy, but it's much more intimate than that. Nix's breath caught as images and emotions flowed between them. She could sense his loneliness despite his royal status, his fascination with her passionate dedication to science, and underneath it all, a growing attraction that matched her own. It's beautiful, she whispered, then pulled her hand away as the intensity became overwhelming. But also dangerous. I can see why General Thross is concerned. Zephyr's expression darkened. Corvin fears what he cannot control. He believes emotion makes us weak. And what do you believe? I believe, Zephyr said, stepping closer until she could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. That feeling deeply is what makes life worth living. Meanwhile, on the bridge of Aurora's Dream, Captain Vera Sterling was discovering that command had become infinitely more complicated with aliens aboard her ship. She watched the main view screen as more Zilithian vessels continued to arrive, their organic forms creating a beautiful but intimidating fleet. Captain, Lieutenant Jackson Reed reported from his station. I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the Zilithian flagship. It looks like they're powering up weapon systems. Vera frowned, The exchange had been going well, despite some cultural misunderstandings. "Hail, Ambassador Xylia." The view screen shimmered, revealing not Xylia, but General Thros, his red facial marking seeming more agitated than before. "Captain Sterling," he said without preamble, "I'm ordering the immediate termination of this exchange. Your people are proving to be more dangerous than anticipated." "Dangerous how?" Vera asked, moving closer to the screen. "Our teams have been following all agreed-upon protocols. Your emotions," Thros spat, "are spreading through our neural network like a virus. Several of my crew members are experiencing what you humans call attraction to your people. It's disrupting our collective consciousness." Vera glanced at Jackson, seeing her own concern reflected in his eyes. This was a complication they hadn't anticipated. "General, we had no idea our presence would affect your people in this way. We're willing to work with you to find a solution." "The solution is simple," Thros replied coldly. "Immediate separation and quarantine protocols. Your species will be classified as a biological hazard and restricted to your current solar system." "That's unacceptable," Vera said firmly. "Humanity has the right to explore and make contact with other civilizations. You have no rights here, human. You are primitives who stumbled into forces beyond your comprehension." The transmission cut off abruptly, and Vera found herself staring at empty space. She turned to find Jackson at her shoulder, his presence both comforting and distracting. "Captain, what are our options?" he asked quietly. Before Vera could answer, Ambassador Xylia materialized on the bridge, but this time she was not alone. A stunning Zilithian female warrior stood beside her, radiating barely contained aggression. This newcomer had darker skin than Xylia, with intricate silver tattoos covering her arms and a warrior's build that spoke of countless battles. "Captain Sterling," Xylia said, her usual composed demeanor showing cracks of strain. "I must introduce Commander Vega Torin, my military advisor and—" She paused meaningfully. "Prince Zephyr's former bonded partner." Vega stepped forward, her luminous eyes fixed on Vera with predatory intensity. "Where is Prince Zephyr? He has not returned to our ship, and his neural signature has become contaminated." "Contaminated?" Vera repeated. "He's in the laboratory with Dr. Castellanos," Jackson reported from his station. Vega's expression became thunderous. "Impossible. Zephyr would never allow himself to be influenced by primitive alien emotions." "Commander Torin," Xylia said with quiet authority, "you will remember your place. The prince makes his own choices." "Not when those choices threaten the stability of our entire civilization," Vega snarled. She turned back to Vera. "Your Dr. Castellanos has somehow bonded with Zephyr. Their neural connection is broadcasting across our entire fleet. My warriors are abandoning their posts to seek out human companionship. It's chaos." Vera activated her comm system. "Dr. Castellanos to the bridge immediately." Within minutes, Nyx arrived with Prince Zephyr at her side. Vera could immediately see what Vega was talking about. The two were standing closer than mere professional colleagues, and there was an energy between them that seemed to make the air itself shimmer. "Commander Torin," Zephyr said formally, but Vera noticed how his hand moved protectively toward Nyx. "Zephyr," Vega replied, her voice carrying centuries of intimate history. "What have you done to yourself?" "I have experienced something our people have forgotten," Zephyr said simply. "Individual choice. Personal connection. Love." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Vega's expression shifted through several emotions before settling on something that looked like heartbreak. "Love is a luxury our species cannot afford," she said quietly. "The collective consciousness requires emotional stability. Individual attachments threaten the very foundation of our society." "Then perhaps," Nyx said, surprising everyone by stepping forward, "your society needs to evolve." The silence that followed was deafening. Vera saw Xylia's eyes widen with what might have been respect, while Vega looked ready to attack. "Dr. Castellanos," Vera said carefully, "perhaps you should explain what you've discovered." Nix moved to the bridge's science station, her hands flying over the controls with practiced efficiency. The Zilithian neural network is incredibly sophisticated, but it's also limiting. By suppressing individual emotional responses, they've created a stable but stagnant society. The main screen displayed complex neural mapping data that meant nothing to Vera, but seemed to fascinate the Zilithians. Our human emotional intensity isn't contaminating their network, Nix continued, her voice growing more confident. It's showing them possibilities they've forgotten. The capacity for growth, for change, for individual choice within collective harmony. Impossible, Vega said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? Zephyr asked, moving to stand beside Nix. Vega, you and I were bonded for 50 years, but did we ever truly choose each other? Or were we simply assigned because our neural patterns were compatible? Vega's composure finally cracked. We were happy, Zephyr. We were stable. We were content, he corrected gently. But I have felt happiness, Vega. True, individual, chosen, happiness, and it doesn't diminish the collective, it enhances it. The view screen suddenly crackled to life, showing General Thross's flagship powering up what were unmistakably weapon systems. This ends now, Thross's voice boomed across the bridge. All human vessels will surrender immediately for quarantine processing or they will be destroyed. Vera felt the familiar calm that came over her in crisis situations. Battle stations, all hands to combat readiness. Captain, Zelia said urgently, there may be another way. If we can prove that human Zilithian emotional bonding actually strengthens, rather than weakens our society, the High Council might overrule Thross. How do we prove that? Jackson asked. By showing them, Zephyr said, taking Nix's hand. The neural connection between Nix and myself isn't just personal. It's created new pathways in our collective consciousness, possibilities our people haven't seen in millennia. Vega stepped forward, her expression conflicted. The quantum resonance between your species is unlike anything in our databases. If Thross destroys the humans now, we'll lose this opportunity forever. Then help us, Vera said simply. Help us show your people that love isn't weakness. It's evolution. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Outside, more Zilithian vessels were taking defensive positions, clearly split, between those loyal to Thross and those willing to consider Zelia's diplomatic approach. Vega, Zephyr said softly, I know this is difficult. You and I have history, but you found something I cannot give you, Vega interrupted, her voice heavy with loss. I can see it in your neural patterns, even from here. This human has awakened something in you that 50 years with me never could. Nix stepped forward, surprising everyone. Commander Torin, love isn't a finite resource. Zephyr's connection with me doesn't diminish what you two shared. If anything, it should enhance it. Your species' collective consciousness means you can all benefit from the growth that individual relationships provide. You would share him? Vega asked, clearly confused by the concept. I would share the joy, Nix said simply. The growth, the evolution. Isn't that what civilization is supposed to be about? Learning, growing, becoming more than what we were? Ambassador. Zelia moved to the center of the bridge, her presence commanding attention. The ancient texts speak of a time when our people felt as deeply as humans do now. We chose collective stability over individual growth, but perhaps it's time to find a balance. The High Council will never agree to this, Vega said, though her voice carried less certainty than before. They will, if we can prove it. Works, Zelia replied. Captain Sterling, I propose a formal alliance between our species. Not just diplomatic, but personal. Let our people learn from each other. Vera looked around her bridge, seeing hope and determination on every face. Ambassador, if your people are willing to learn from us, we're certainly willing to learn from you. The view screen flashed red as proximity alarms sounded. General Thross's flagship was moving into attack position, its weapon systems fully charged. Decide quickly, Jackson said grimly. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. Vera took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would either start a war or begin a new chapter in galactic history. Ambassador Zilia, Commander Torin, Prince Zephyr, are you willing to stand with humanity against those who would deny evolution through love? The three Zilithians exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Finally, Zelia nodded. Captain Sterling, it would be our honor. As General Thross's weapons reached full charge, Vera Sterling realized that sometimes the greatest battles weren't fought with ships and weapons, but with hearts and minds. And somehow, love was about to become humanity's greatest weapon. The moment General Thross opened fire, everything changed. Captain Vera Sterling watched in horror as plasma bolts streaked across space toward three smaller Zilithian vessels that had moved to protect Aurora's dream. The beautiful organic ships absorbed the hits with shields that rippled like disturbed water, but Vera could see they wouldn't last long against the flagship's superior firepower. Return fire, Vera commanded, but even as her weapons officer complied, she knew their human weapons were outmatched. Captain, Lieutenant Jackson Reed called from his station, I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. Something big is coming. Ambassador Zilia stood at the center of the bridge, her luminous eyes closed in concentration. The High Council has been watching. They're sending the evaluation fleet. Evaluation fleet? Vera asked, trying to keep Aurora's dream. Between Thross's flagship and the smaller Zilithian ships, 12 dreadnoughts commanded by Empress Serafina Void Whisper herself, Prince Zephyr explained, his arm protectively around Dr. Nix Castellanos. If she deems humanity worthy, we live. If not. He didn't need to finish. Vera could see the massive ships emerging from subspace, each one dwarfing even Thross's flagship. They moved with the grace of ancient predators, and Vera felt a chill of recognition. These weren't just warships, they were instruments of extinction. All human vessels. This is Admiral Orion Cross aboard the UEF Valkyrie, came a familiar voice. Over the comm. Vera's heart lifted as she saw the sleek forms of the human battle fleet dropping out of FTL. Cross had been her mentor at the academy, a grizzled veteran with silver hair and eyes like steel. Admiral Cross, thank God you're here, Vera replied. Captain Sterling, I've been monitoring your situation. Looks like you've managed to start the most important war in human history. Before Vera could respond, the view screen shifted to show a figure that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Empress Serafina Void Whisper was ancient beyond human comprehension, with skin that seemed to contain entire galaxies and eyes that held the weight of civilizations. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of eons. General Corvin Thross, the Empress said, and even through the comm system her disapproval was palpable. You fire upon diplomatic vessels in the presence of potential allies. Explain yourself. Thross's image appeared on screen, his red markings now pulsing with agitation. Empress, these humans are biological hazards. Their emotional contamination threatens our entire species. Contamination? The Empress's laugh was like the sound of stellar wind through cosmic dust. Corvin, you speak of evolution as if it were disease. Show me this contamination. What happened next would be remembered in both human and Zilithian histories as the moment everything changed. Prince Zephyr stepped forward, still holding Nix's hand. Empress Serafina, I request permission to demonstrate the neural bond between our species. Granted. Zephyr closed his eyes and extended his free hand toward the view screen. Suddenly, the bridge was filled with a sensation Vera had never experienced. It was as if she could feel the emotions of everyone present. Not just their own crew, but the Zilithians as well. Joy, fear, love, determination, and hope flowed between them like a river of light. But more than that, Vera could sense something vast and ancient stirring within the Zilithian collective consciousness. It was as if their entire species was waking, up from a long sleep. Fascinating, the Empress murmured. The humans have awakened neural pathways that have been dormant for millennia. This is not contamination, Corvin. This is renaissance. Commander Vega Torin, who had been silent since the battle began, suddenly stepped forward. Empress, I can confirm the Prince's findings. The emotional resonance between our species isn't weakening our collective, it's expanding it. We're becoming more than we were. General Thross's image flickered with rage. Vega, you've been compromised as well. These humans are using some form of mental manipulation. His words were cut off as space around them suddenly filled with new ships, but these weren't Zilithian or human. They were something else entirely. Dark vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their hulls writhed with what looked like living metal, and as they approached, every sensor on every ship began screaming warnings. What are those? Vera asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. The Nexus Swarm, Empress Seraphina said, her ancient voice carrying genuine concern for the first time. A parasitic species that consumes other civilizations. They were drawn here by our neural emissions. Admiral Cross's voice crackled over the comm. All vessels, new hostile contacts. These things are firing some kind of bioweapons at everything that moves. Vera watched in horror as one of the Nexus ships fired a pulsing beam at a Zilithian cruiser. The beam seemed to burrow into the ship's hull, and within seconds the beautiful organic vessel began to writhe and change, its crew's screams echoing across the communication channels. They're turning our people into more of them, Zephyr said, his face pale with shock. Not just your people, Admiral Cross reported grimly. I'm seeing the same thing happening to human ships that get hit. Whatever that weapon is, it converts living tissue into more Nexus drones. The battle that erupted was unlike anything in recorded history. Human ships with their angular, aggressive designs fought alongside the flowing organic forms of Zilithian vessels against an enemy that turned their own people against them. Vera found herself working closely with Commander Vega Torren, who had transported aboard Aurora's Dream to coordinate joint tactics. Despite the situation, Vera couldn't help but notice the way Vega's eyes followed Prince Zephyr and Dr. Nix, and the pain she tried to hide. Commander, Vera said during a brief lull in the fighting, I know this situation with Zephyr and Nix must be difficult for you. Vega's smile was rueful. Captain, I spent 50 years with Zephyr in what we called love, but it was really just comfortable compatibility. Watching him with your Dr. Castellanos, I realize I never truly knew what love could be. That doesn't make what you had less meaningful. No, Vega agreed. But it makes me want to find something more. Your species has shown us that growth is possible, even for ancient hearts like mine. Their conversation was interrupted as the Nexus Swarm pressed their attack. General Thross's flagship, despite his opposition to the Alliance, was fighting alongside the human fleet, his weapons tearing into the parasitic vessels with methodical precision. Empress, Admiral Cross's voice came over the comm. We're taking heavy casualties. These things adapt to our weapons too quickly. The neural connection, Nix suddenly said from her position at the science station. The bond between humans and Zilithians might be the key. The Nexus Swarm operates through a hive mind, but our individual emotional connections disrupt their collective consciousness. Prince Zephyr nodded excitedly. If we can amplify the neural resonance between our species, we might be able to create a feedback loop that disrupts their entire network. How? Vera asked. We need more connections, Zephyr explained. More human Zilithian bonds. The more individuals who connect emotionally, the stronger the disruption. Vera looked around the bridge at her crew, then at the Zilithians who had become their unlikely allies. You're talking about people opening their minds to each other in the middle of a battle. That's incredibly dangerous. Captain, Lieutenant Jackson Reed said, moving to her side. If it means saving both our species, I'm willing to try. Vera felt her heart skip as she realized what he was offering. They had danced around their feelings for years, held back by regulations and professional duty. Now, with the fate of both civilizations hanging in the balance, he was ready to open, his heart completely. Jackson, she said softly, if we do this, there's no going back. Our connection will be as deep as what Zephyr and Nix share. I know, he replied, taking her hand. I've been waiting for you to be ready. Around the bridge, similar scenes were playing out. Human crew members were partnering with Zilithian guests, their species differences becoming irrelevant in the face of mutual affection and shared purpose. Commander Vega approached a young human engineer named Torres, extending her hand with a shy smile that transformed her warrior's face into something beautiful and vulnerable. I don't know how this works, Torres admitted, taking her hand. Neither do I, Vega replied. But that's what makes it an adventure. As the neural connections formed across both fleets, something extraordinary happened. The space around them began to shimmer with visible energy, and the Nexus swarm ships suddenly began to falter in their attacks. It's working, Nyx reported excitedly. Their hive mind is being disrupted by our individual connections. They can't process the complexity of our emotional bonds. Empress Seraphina's voice carried new warmth. Remarkable. In one day, these humans have accomplished what our species hasn't achieved in millennia. They've shown us how to grow beyond our limitations. The battle's tide turned rapidly after that. The Nexus swarm, unable to maintain their collective consciousness in the face of so many powerful individual connections, began to retreat. Their ships, no longer coordinated, became easy targets for the combined human Zilithian fleet. As the last Nexus vessel disappeared into the void, General Thross's image appeared on the view screen. His expression was humbled, the red markings on his face now pulsing with what Vera had learned to recognize as Zilithian embarrassment. Captain Sterling, he said formally, I owe you and your species an apology. You have proven that strength comes not from uniformity, but from unity in diversity. General, Vera replied diplomatically, we all learned something today. Our species may be different, but we share the same capacity for growth. Later, as the combined fleets celebrated their victory, Vera found herself on the observation deck, with Jackson watching human and Zilithian ships moving in perfect harmony among the stars. So what happens now? Jackson asked, his arm around her waist. Now, Vera said, leaning into his warmth, we write a new chapter in galactic history, one where love conquers not just individual hearts, but entire civilizations. In the distance, she could see Prince Zephyr and Dr. Nyx working together on a joint research project that would benefit both species. While Commander Vega and Engineer Torres shared what appeared to be their first kiss, Ambassador Zilia materialized beside them, no longer needing to announce her presence. Captain Sterling, she said with a smile, the High Council has voted. Humanity is to be welcomed into the galactic community as full partners, not subjects, and the emotional connections between our species will be celebrated as the next step in our evolution. Both species have learned that love, in all its forms, is the most powerful force in the universe. As if to prove her point, the space around them sparkled with the visible energy of thousands of new connections forming between human and Zilithian crew members. Each bond was unique, each relationship a small miracle of understanding across species lines. Vera Sterling, who had started this journey as an explorer seeking new worlds, had discovered something far more valuable. She had found love not just for one person, but for an entire way of being that embraced connection, growth, and the beautiful chaos of choosing to care about someone different from yourself. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be. As Aurora's dream set course for Earth, now accompanied by a full Zilithian diplomatic fleet, Vera knew that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had proven that love could bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, and unite even the most different of species in common cause. The stars themselves seemed to pulse with approval, as if the universe had been waiting for this moment when two civilizations would choose love over fear, growth over stagnation, and unity over isolation. In the end, that choice had saved them all.